bad on the world stock exchanges, tomorrow's is expected to be even worse. An hour ago, the London Stock Exchange opened for business with share prices 10% down on yesterday's disastrous figures. And the prices are still falling. As one commentator told us from London tonight, the carnage on the international stock market continues. There are people who will never recover financially from today's record slump in the stock markets of the world. Shareholders, big and small, have gone broke overnight as the world faces its biggest financial crisis since the Great Depression. All in all, an estimated $70,000 million was ripped from the value of Australian shares in today's trading. Financial experts say Elders IXL dropped around $1.3 billion in value today, and I'll talk with Elders Chairman John Elliott shortly about that. But first, the day at the Sydney Stock Exchange from Ron Sinclair.
Can I ask you what you think's going to happen first up?
I have no idea.
Well, I suspect there'll be free fall for the first hour or so, and then possibly a recovery later in the afternoon.
What's your tip?
I think it'll be dropping a fair bit.
It's a half an hour before the commencement of trading here at the Sydney Stock Exchange, and the pre-trading crowd, this one behind me, is already unprecedented. No matter what happens here today, we're going to see history. And to be here to see history is an eerie feeling indeed.
It's like flying high.
Have you ever seen a pre-trading adjustment like this before?
No, man, nothing like this.
What's it showing?
Well, basically, there's no buyers in the market. You can just look up there, BHP 850 offer. There's no buyers anywhere.
Have you ever seen a pre-market adjustment like this before?
I'm really too busy to talk, I'm sorry.
What's your prediction?
We're in a lot of trouble.
From 10 o'clock on the dot, it was bedlam. The Poseidon boom of the 60s hadn't seen it. This was capitalism in its worst collapse.
Back one! Materials sell at 40!
As brokers broke the bad news to the few clients able to reach them, the despair was everywhere.
I can't get you out of these stocks because there's no buyers. The market at the moment is down 312 points. There's no sign of any recovery. It's a worldwide financial crisis, and Sydney has not been immune. You're seeing living history here, mate.
Mark, half an hour into trading, 325 points off. What's it cost us?
Well, it's dissolved about $50,000 million. That's just evaporated out of the wealth of Australia.
So we've got princes to paupers already in half an hour.
A lot of people would have lost their life savings.
So look at this. This is what we're seeing. BHP, 20,000 shares gone. 2,000 shares, 3,000 shares, 15,000 shares in an EXL. They're people's nest eggs, the future, all going on the tip. Rene Rivkin, in a word, wow.
No, wow's not enough. I mean, this is short of a major disaster, if you like, but it is a disaster. There's no doubt about it. The world's markets today, for example, have plunged beyond imagination, and here the markets are in an absolute shambles.
Well, apart from the punters, how long can the country cop it?
Well, the country can cop it. I mean, we've had some major falls. Just to give you an example, TNT's down from $6 to $2.80. BHP's down from $10 to $8. Clearly, the major participants that held lots of BHP are today in strife. Bell Group, Bell Resources, Elders has gone down by $2 a share. I don't believe that it's 1929, but I believe that history will show that it's the next worst thing that will ever have happened for the next 500 years.
It makes number 5 in race 3 at Randwick look like a good bet.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Lord Teller, buy 140. Buy 140, Lord Teller.
By now, it was mid-morning. Those with guts were beginning to take the odd cautious punt, but it was a brave punt indeed, as the market slid deeper and deeper towards complete collapse.
Sell it, $3. Sell it, John, sell it, $3.
And as the lunchtime break neared, the magic 12:15, exhausted brokers, exhausted chalkies heaved heavy relief, with precious time to lick their wounds with yet worse to come. How much ordinary people's money is involved in this? How many superannuation funds, small schemes?
I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but let me tell you that the people of Australia are financially very wounded today. I mean, that's, as a broad generalisation, the people of Australia are financially very wounded. And there'll be lots of bankruptcies around, unfortunately. There are rumours now, and they probably are just that, the two major American securities firms are going out the back door, and if that happens, of course, the market's going to go much lower.
And it didn't end there. On the streets outside the stock exchange, disbelief at what was taking place inside. How have you done?
Not so good.
But it's very worrying, and it's about time we all took stock of ourselves. We've had a bit of fool's paradise. We've welcomed every other country into the place, practically given it away. We've squandered money on projects that's not necessary. Now we'll have to pay for it.
Frightening stuff. As one financial journalist said, you could smell the fear. After this, one of today's big losers, Elders IXL Chief John Elliott. One of the biggest companies in Australia is Elders IXL. The corporate giant is rated as one of our top 10 companies involved in brewing, finance and mining, amongst other things. But today, according to some financial experts, Elders IXL dropped around $1.3 billion in its share value. But when I talked to Elders chairman John Elliott, he gave the impression it was just another day at the office. Mr. Elliott, thank you for your time.
Pleasure, Terry.
How would you describe today's crash?
Well, I think it's been, grossly over-exaggerated. I think most people would have thought the markets were overheated and were waiting for some movement downward. Of course, in markets today, you get this herd mentality working. So, as far as we're concerned, we've already just had meetings this afternoon to look at the opportunities to start buying. The mentality in New York and Japan, that's where it really stems from. You could see the reaction continuing. On the other hand, fundamentally, Australian companies are in better shape this year than they were last year. And we've just been looking at our first quarter results, and I said at lunchtime today, we've never started the year better.
Mr. Elliott, I understand you've also blamed the media in part for what's happened.
Well, I do, yes. I think the media, and I heard the reports last night and some of the news reports this morning, and I've seen the Melbourne Herald today. I think they do over-exaggerate the situation, particularly for the small investor. I mean, talking about a crash as bad as 1929, fundamentally the market's off, but the economies of the world are not. Now, the US economy might be slipping a bit, but there's nothing fundamental in the economies of the world that have changed from last month.
Yes, but if the small investor believes what he or she reads in the papers, they only take up, what, about 5% of investors overall. So how could they influence such a crash?
Well, all I can tell you is you look at the volume of shares that went through the market in the first hour and a half's trading. When the Australian share market went off 30%, it was very, very small.
Yes, but okay, what about the bigger investors? Surely people like yourselves don't read a newspaper and make a decision based on what you've read.
No, but I'm saying we came into the market this morning when I got back into the office to see where the markets were. We became an immediate buyer.
Well, one financial reporter estimates that Elders IXL, your company, dropped $1.3 billion from yesterday to 2:30 p.m. today. How do you calculate it?
Well, you'd have to. Our main calculation would be BHP. BHP is off. What did it close? About 8.50. I didn't see the final closing. $1.50. It'd be less than that. It was worth 2.6. It's probably down. No, we're at about. Our BHP investment would be down about 400 million, I think. We've still got significant profits.
So you're saying 1.3 billion is wrong?
Yes, yes, it is.
How will this affect Australian business, do you think?
No doubt there are always people in over-leveraged situations, over-geared situations. When a market like this happens, then they go broke. There'll be some people that have borrowed and will be sold out in the markets around the world in the next 48 hours because of the fall. But I think its effect on Australian business, I think, will be quite minimal in terms of the way we're operating companies and getting on with our business. But we're long-term investors. We're not people in the trading situation. I think anybody trading today is taking big risks because the markets could go either way very quickly.
Mr. Elliott, I don't doubt your credibility at all, but do you have a vested interest in talking the market up?
No, we're putting our money where our mouth is, Terry. We've spent several million already today. But there's no doubt the investment community has been a net seller. It'll be interesting to see whether any brave folks come into the market in the next day or two.
If this trend continues in the next day or two, what's the future?
Well, in terms of Elders IXL, doesn't mean a thing. We've got a very low debt base, and we've got 500 million of underutilised lines, so we're in a very strong position. You know, in terms of our beer business, in terms of rural agricultural business, in terms of our finance business and those sorts of things, it has very little impact. It doesn't have an impact at all. It wipes some profits out of some portfolio holdings, but for the major industrial companies, it doesn't affect them very much at all.
Mr. Elliott, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure, Terry.
Elders IXL Chief John Elliott. Next on the program, we change tack and we talk with the world's most famous surrogate mother, Mary Beth Whitehead. Welcome back. The world's best-known surrogate mum is Mary Beth Whitehead. 2 years ago, she agreed to bear a child for an infertile couple in the United States. A surrogate contract was drawn up and Mary Beth was to be paid $10,000 for carrying the baby. But the contract was broken when Mary Beth refused to hand over the child. A landmark legal case followed. There was an emotion charge trial which pitted the surrogate mum against William and Elizabeth Stern. The historic case went against Mary Beth. The judge awarded custody of baby M to the Sterns. The natural mother lost all parental rights. But in 6 weeks, the US Supreme Court will decide whether the decision was right. And there's some legal opinion the decision could be reversed. Mary Beth Whitehead has refused all television interviews, but this week agreed to talk with TWT's man in Los Angeles, Ian Hislop.
It was the plaintive cry of Mary Beth Whitehead that introduced Americans and the world to the looming and ethical questions surrounding the relatively new practice of surrogate parenting. Just weeks after the trial ended, Mary Beth Whitehead separated from her husband Richard and went into virtual hiding with her 2 children in a leafy New Jersey township. It was in the nearby offices of a lawyer that she agreed to talk to us.
I've been humiliated and kind of pushed around and knocked down, and that's okay. I keep on getting back up. And I think that it's made me stronger.
Why is the public being unsympathetic towards your cause, do you think?
I think it's because of the way the media kind of presented me to the public. Emotionally, it was very hard. And if I cried, it made it look like I was off the wall. If I laughed, it would have looked like I didn't care. So I think that no matter what I would have done, I would have been wrong. There was nothing right that I could have done. It was just, that's the way it was.
Nobody seems to be concerned about fathers' rights. Fathers have dreams, too.
At the conclusion of the emotion charge trial, Judge Harvey Sorkow concluded the 30-year-old surrogate mother was manipulative, exploitative, and compulsive, and not a good custodian for baby M. The child would be better placed, he said, with the Sterns.
It's like I have tingling feelings in my elbow right now, and my legs are numb, and I'm so happy.
You talk about that lack of public sympathy, the hate mail, the death threats.
I've had a few. I think it's just people who don't understand. I think that what I've learned from all of this is that don't judge other people. And I guess because I've been so judged, and I don't think anybody has that right.
How difficult has it been since the court case?
Very difficult. It's difficult. I mean, I grin and I bear it. My children grin and bear it. But it's hard. It's very difficult.
So how does Mary Beth Whitehead spend her days?
Cleaning, cooking, running around, running down to testify for Congress. I try to keep as busy as I can, because then I don't think about her.
Do you think the separation from your husband is going to have any effect on your chances of getting baby M back?
I really don't want to discuss that, not at this time. I just feel that our personal life is our personal life, and I would like to keep that as personal as we could.
Well, many out there are saying you should have been aware of the conditions and the obligations of the contract before you signed it.
The contract didn't mean anything to me. It was something that I thought was good. I thought thought that I was here to help other people. That's just how I feel about the world. I just feel that if somebody's suffering, somebody's in pain, that you reach out and you try to help them. And that's all I tried to do. But the contract didn't mean anything to me. And it certainly didn't mean anything to Bill Stern either.
What feelings do you have towards the Sterns now?
I think of them like in-laws. I'm not real fond of them because of the pain that they put, not so much that they put me through, but what they've done to my other children and my husband and my family. I don't think was necessary. But I could live with it, and I could get over it. I think of them like in-laws. I think that we'll always have some kind of relationship, and I think that they're just kidding themselves to think that there won't be.
During the trial, it was recorded telephone conversations produced by William Stern's lawyers that led to accusations that the 30-year-old surrogate mother was mentally unbalanced.
I want my... Mary Beth Whitehead, we lost that sewing machine blew up. I think you got the impression there that she's still fighting, and she is still fighting for custody of baby M. She lost the baby to the Sterns, whom she had contracted to carry the baby for, but has appealed the decision, and the decision should be handed down by the Supreme Court in about 6 weeks. After this, a pet of the week with a difference. Well, Australia has produced some great inventors, and as you'll see in this story, age is no barrier when it comes to high tech. With silicon chips, Melbourne student Declan Trail has created what he would regard as the perfect pet. Shane Castleman reports.
Like many 17-year-olds, when Declan Trail heads home from school each afternoon, he knows his faithful dog will be waiting to greet him. But Declan's pet hound is not your average mutt. K9 is a robot dog, and what he lacks in personality, he more than makes up in technical wizardry.
I like the appearance of the K9 robot dog, which I saw on Doctor Who, so I decided to copy the same model, the design, you know, just for the outward appearance. And I was interested in robotics as well, so I just made it into a robot which looked like the K9 which I saw on Doctor Who.
No after-school treat of doggy bix here. K9's diet consists entirely of chips, silicon chips.
Well, you program in through the keyboard on the back there. He'll actually go and do it then, follow your instructions. If you wanted to stop halfway, you just press the any button on the back and he'll pause until you press the button again.
Enter 0, enter, now processing data,
What sort of effect does it make compared to a real dog?
Well, it actually talks. This might be one advantage. I mean, most dogs just woof at you all the time. He says what he's doing as he's doing it. Like, if you tell him to go forwards, he'll say he's going forwards. He's got a couple of other functions in the head just for effect, you know, like the ears go around and the nose goes in and out.
Declan spent 2 years creating K9, and the level of expertise he achieved paid off this week when he won the Victorian final of the Beyond 2000 AMP Science Awards.
I was quite confident about the technical side of it. I mean, I knew that was up to a scratch insofar as, you know, the complexity, that kind of thing. I was a bit worried about the applications. I mean, hasn't got an outstandingly new application of helping someone in a certain circumstance like some other inventions have.
Declan's love of electronics began at an early age.
About 3 or something, you know, I used to look inside old televisions and that kind of thing. And, you know, you just learn things as you play around with them, you know.
What sort of things would you like to do in the future?
Something to do with space, probably. I mean, something to do with satellites or things like the shuttle, maybe. That'd be my hope.
Declan will be hanging up his inventor's cap for the time being as he prepares to tackle HSC next year. But in between his studies, he can always take the dog for a walk.
Hey, hounds need a job, and this one suits me fine. Rounding up and keeping them in line, I'm just a dog.
K9. K9, get it? Honestly, I didn't get that till I just said it. K9. There are some advantages, of course, with K9. He doesn't make little messes, but he's torn up the carpet 3 times. I had to replace the carpet in the lounge room 3 times. And as for the lino in the kitchen, oh, forget it. That's happened a couple of times as well. That's about it for tonight, but we have a couple of special guests coming up in the program. You'll remember, for those of you who are 35 and over, or 40 and over, Annette Funicello and, I don't know if you got his name, Frankie Avalon are having a chat with us. They have remade the movie On the Beach, and we'll be taking a look at it, see what they're up to and see how they look years on after they were big stars right across the world. But tomorrow night on the program, a story of amazing courage. This youngster has fought back from the brink of death after a simple accident at home.
As soon as I got to hospital, I knew I was going to live, and I said to myself, I'm not going to die. I just knew I was going to live and live and live and keep going.
An amazing boy, and you'll meet him tomorrow night. His story is... Well, before I go, I really have to thank my wife. Believe it or not, for the last couple of months, she's been saying, why don't we get all our money together and buy some stock? We can become investors, and I didn't get around to it. I haven't fixed up the back fence either, but I didn't get around to that, which is terrific. So I thank you, Willesse, for that. You saved me money, us money. That's it for tonight. I hope you can join us tomorrow night at 7. Till then.